Hi, welcome. It's Pam here, and today I'm going to go over number 8 in the Overhelping series. And today we're going to listen to a story from my husband Dylan, and you're going to want to stay for that. And I have a little story of my own, and we've been talking about a lot of the negatives when you overdo something, when I have been over responsible for others, over helping, doing too much, people pleasing, boundary breaking, and not being able to say no, and all of the stuff that happens when you do that. And I've been unpacking why I think this happens and some of the stories, even dangerous stories, things I've gotten myself into, bad situations because I couldn't say no and I was over responsible. I also identified ways that I still do this in maybe smaller ways, but I still do it. But today it's going to be the other side completely, the blessing of helping others, or as I've titled it, when helping doesn't hurt. Helping doesn't always have to be a negative thing. In fact, most of the time, it's wonderful, it's needed, and it encourages us. It gives us new relationships and helps us to feel like we're contributing, right, to this world. This is number 8. So we've done quite a few in this series, and I don't know if this is quite the end. I think I have one more where I want to talk about ways to stop and maybe a little bit about how to tell someone else when they might be overstepping your bounds and over helping you. But today we're talking about the blessing. When you're able to make a difference in someone's life, it blesses your socks off, as they say. Recently, Dylan had the experience of offering to help a young addicted woman. It was during a regular work day, except that it was the middle of snowy winter here in Alberta, and it was about minus 36 degrees below zero. So I'll let him tell the story. So as you know, I've been doing a video series on YouTube about my propensity to overhelp or be over responsible. And I've talked about times where I have done way too much to help people or been taken advantage of by people. But I wanted to share the other side, which is that sometimes it is a huge blessing to help people. And so, yeah, I was thinking of a time that you shared that you were in the right place at the right time and were really able to help someone. Could you just tell us about that day and how you ended up doing that and what happened?
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to tell the story the best I can. So probably about, 2 months ago, we had a really horrible winter storm rolling in. It was very cold, like, I don't know, minus 30 or so Celsius. And the wind chill on top of that was even colder than that. And anyways, I was getting my pickup truck all ready for the day, like getting fuel and everything. And just trying to think. Yeah, because I knew we would probably be getting some phone calls for plowing snow with all their graders and stuff, and just various wintry type of jobs coming up. And so I just wanted to be prepared. And anyways, I had gotten my truck all ready. I was at a fuel station, and a young lady came up to me, and she was wanting to hitch a ride to BC, which I definitely wasn't going there. That is a law, the border itself is about 3 hours away or so just to get to the border of Alberta and BC. So I ended up kind of blowing her off a bit, like just basically trying to tell her to get out of here. She was definitely a woman who was very addicted to drugs. I imagine meth. I could just tell by her face it was kind of scabby, and she was just a mess. And all she had on pretty much were jogging pants and a very thin fleece. She was freezing. She didn't have winter boots on. She just had these silly heels and like not winter boots, but they were boots with heels. I really felt that I guess it was God telling me to let this young lady into my truck because she was going to freeze to death out there. She had no place to go. And so my initial thought was I figured I could fill up my slip tank with diesel at the other fuel station west of Edson. And so we drove, I said, we'll drive there. Maybe you can find some truck drivers that are driving towards the British Columbian border. And because she was trying to make it to this northern city called Prince George, which I'm very familiar with because I grew up around there as a kid. Anyways, so through it all, like, she agreed to let me drive her there. And I figured she could wait in this waiting room, like kind of area where the bathrooms were, and she could stay warm there. Then she started asking some of the other guys, like truck drivers and stuff, if they're going to BC. And she also wanted me to use my two-way radio to try to radio some people, and I refused to do that. I said, no, I'm not doing that. And anyways, so I thought about just leaving her there, but I was worried that she was gonna hitchhike in this freezing cold weather and, before somebody could even pick her up, possibly freeze to death. She was not, dressed for it at all. So I was pretty sharp with her because, she's making dumb choices. Sharp in the fact that I cared about a human being who was in a real dire need of help, but also frustrated with some of her life choices. So I ended up, I talked to her. I said, get back in the truck. And I gave her two options. I said, you're either going to freeze to death out here, or I'm going to take you back to town and find a place where you can either get some shelter or some help. And I said, those are your only two choices. And I even said I was willing to put her up for a hotel for the night, which I was willing to do. I think the whole point is, like, I've known a lot of people, and I've been guilty of it as well, but just really turn their noses up towards people who are addicted to drugs. And as a Christian, I feel that we are so rash to, we're so quick to make judgment calls on people and their dumb decisions. Like, I agree that people are responsible for their own choices, absolutely, but I also believe that God has put me on this earth also to help people when I can. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I guess I could quickly kind of steer to a political thing. I mean, I think I'm not a liberal at all. I guess I lean conservative, but I've met a lot of conservative people that definitely have a pull yourself up from by your own bootstraps type of attitude, and just lousy attitude to people like that. And I've been trying to change my heart in that area in so many ways, and I really think God gave me an opportunity to really show Christ's love to this woman. Part of it was pretty tough love because I have children that are adults as well. This lady was around 30 and not too much older than my own daughter, so I was also thinking of it as a dad too, if this was my daughter out there. And I was driving back towards town and just wrestling to know what am I going to do with her. And so I remember there's an incredible place in town called Shekinah Coffee. Anyways, and just incredible people there that own the place, just really show the love of Christ to a lot of our homeless people and have good connections too, and have things like they give free meals to people who are on the streets, and just toques and gloves. Like he had a lot of that stuff there. So I knew I could find some help for her there.
Yeah.
And I offered to buy her a meal, and they said, well, it would be on the house. And I said, well, no, I'm good for it. I can buy her some stew and some food. And I asked her, is that what she wanted? She says, yeah, I'm really hungry. But she didn't really eat it, so we got it to go. And I found out a place in town where I could drop her off. And yeah, just a really, really helpful, beautiful people there to help the people that get totally fall through the cracks in society. And yeah, it was just a beautiful moment of being a blessing to somebody who, if I didn't step in, may have not lived. And
Yeah, or maybe ended up with somebody who didn't have such a kind heart.
yeah, exactly, right? Or even some creepy guy could have done harm to her too, like, you know. And yeah, it was definitely a beautiful moment of just seeing the gratefulness in this young lady's eyes for me to care enough to get her somewhere safe and warm. Even though part of her, I think, didn't want to do that because she's probably been in these situations numerous times. You know, I even told her, like, I guess her friend left her there. I said, you got to find better friends, and yeah, and just kind of challenging her a little bit to make wiser decisions too, and yeah. So I think, yeah, like Pam's talking about the overhelping. There's definitely, we've had that in our life where we've overhelped and overstepped our bounds, where it's got us into cases where people are taking advantage of our care, and also causing a lot of grief in our own personal relationships with one another too through it. But like Pam's talking about, I think in this video, is the fact that there are times we help people, and it's an absolute blessing and a good thing. You know, you can be overstepping boundaries in people's lives where you're helping, yes, but you may be doing it for either for your own maybe self-gratification, or you're just enabling somebody who's just a user as well. So yeah, but like I say, like Pam and I both love people, even though sometimes loving people can be very hard.
Well, I'm glad you were the one that young lady came to, and we still pray for her. Pray that she's okay and she gets the help she needs.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, honey. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for allowing me to share it on your incredible channel.
Thank you, Dylan. It was great to hear it from you. Thanks for telling it, even though it was late at night and you were tired. I also have a story. I'm not going to share as many details, but because these friends of ours that we were able to help are still really good friends in our lives, and I want to protect them. But let's just say about 14 years ago, we had an opportunity to step in and really make a difference and really help some friends when they had a tragic circumstance happen. Driving to the hospital, driving to appointments, picking up food, making food, and just generally being right there on the other end of the phone or just available. It was not just a good thing or the right thing to do. It was what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be there for them, and I was so grateful that I could be there for them. I was grateful that we could be a help during that time, that I had the resources and the time to drive around and just be there. And it was a great blessing. It may have looked from the outside like I was doing some of the same things, some of the same over-helping, over-responsibility. But in this situation, there was nothing negative. There wasn't a shred of what I'm talking about. It was just helping. It was just good communication, mutual understanding, and simply showing up. There was not one thing I regretted doing. There wasn't a trace of a negative experience. Sometimes you just roll up your pant legs and wade in. And in this situation with a tragedy that this family experienced, I am so grateful that I was able to help. And I also know from their end, talking to them, that it was a blessing to them. I wasn't overstepping my bounds. And so it doesn't have to be so hard. And the difference between over responsibility and over helping that I've been talking about in this series, because you don't know how to say no, or you're being taken advantage of, or you're compelled to meddle in others' lives because of something I'm missing or you're missing, something you're trying to make up for in your own life, your own unmet needs. The difference between that kind of situation and a real helping situation is discernment, and for me, understanding myself. And I also believe God directed us, and we listened, and we followed through. And sometimes it's just not that complicated. You roll up your pant legs, like I said, you roll up your sleeves, you get to work, and you just make a difference. I wanted to make sure I talked about this, that even though I've been going over the negatives of overhelping, how it's depleted my life, how it's just resulted in being taken advantage of, frustrations, and kind of chronic people pleasing. It's not always that way. It can be a truly special and memorable experience when that actually makes a difference for good in someone's life. I'm not afraid to help people anymore. There was a time when I just kind of shrunk back from everything because I was too afraid of myself, my lack of boundaries, and I still do struggle with it, but recognizing my insecurities and my frailties, leaning into discernment from others in my life who are wise and who love me, who are good at discernment, that has made all the difference. So I hope that you learned something here, or at least you were encouraged, and maybe you've been helped before by someone, or maybe you've stepped in and made a difference in someone's life. So yeah, tell us about it in the comments. And thank you so much for being here and listening. And I'll see you again really soon. Goodbye.